Welcome everyone to the 10th podcast. My name is Simon Snowder. I'm so glad to introduce you today to Dr. Abdullah Mansury, my guest. Dr. Abdullah Mansury, Regional Chief Financial Officer at RSA. Welcome.
Simon, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here and to see you, meet you. Hope you're fine.
I am fine, Abdullah. Again, thank you so much. I know you're very busy, that you're making time free out of your schedule to come here and do this podcast with me together.
It's great to be here.
So I want to know everything about you, Abdullah. What is your life story? Where were you born? Who are your parents? Where were you brought up? How did you end up in Dubai? I want to know it all.
Yeah, sure. Let me give you a brief summary. Bit of a strange animal because my name suggests that I have Arabic origin. But in fact, I was born in Germany and have Afghan ancestry. So my parents are from Afghanistan. And the year I was born, they moved to Germany. That's my home country, so to speak. And you may hear from my accent. It's not something that I can avoid.
Just a little bit.
A little bit, right? Not too much. Not too much. So Germany is the place that I have spent most of my life in, and I had during my studies also some time I spent in the United States, and work life then was different. I worked in Germany, but moved to the Middle East in 2008 with my family, and first we lived in Bahrain, spent a couple of years over there, and then moved to Riyadh in Saudi Arabia, also spent a few years there, and since end of 2014, I guess, yes. We've been in Dubai here, and very happy here to be in the Emirate of Dubai and the wonderful country of UAE till today, and who knows how the future holds and what comes next, but we are very happy to be here personally and professionally. It's great.
Okay, so let's go a little bit back. Till what age did you stay in Germany?
So that was until the age of 37, if I count this. So in 2008, so you can now figure out and do the math. I'm 51 years already. Although I look
Time is
right?
flying. You don't look like that. You look like 30.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to hear. Indeed. So mid-30s, I've come to the Middle East and first in Bahrain, as I said, in a number of functions for my then company, Allianz. And it was a great time, so professionally very interesting, and also outside of professional aspects, a great experience. I can recommend everyone who would ask me to spend some time abroad, no matter where you are, simply because you get to know another culture or cultures, other people, and it's, I think, a great experience for everyone, including me.
And you studied in the US, which state?
In Massachusetts, in a city that's called Worcester, like the sauce, yeah. It's a city that has, it's quite interesting to remember because it was focused on traditional and heavy industries, so textile, steel, etc. So it had a high crime rate because the glorious times of those industries had been long over, a high crime rate, and so a lot of small or not so small adventures that you had there, more or less. But it was a great time for me to be there. Studying abroad is a great experience. Equally, again, for similar reasons, you get to know other mentalities, people from various countries and places. And the United States still has a place in my heart, although it has changed, of course, over the time. That was in the 90s when I lived there for almost 2 years. But it was a great time.
Did you travel around in the US?
I did a bit, but it's a big country, and I have not seen all the places. I was on the East Coast and the West Coast, but from the central region, I've seen only a few places. So hopefully, sometime in the next years, I'll be having the opportunity to see also a number of cities and states that I have not seen yet. It's a beautiful country that offers everything.
Yeah, true. So that was your early years, and then you went back to Germany.
Yes.
I believe you worked for McKinsey.
Yes, a long time ago I worked. That was at the start of my professional career. A couple of years that was based in Germany with some projects outside. I worked for McKinsey about 3 years, was about the average time you spend there as a consultant. And interesting enough, I worked in a couple of industries, but not at the industry that I joined later on, insurance industry. So I was in energy. I was in consumer goods, IT, a few others, but not insurance or finance related, so to speak. That's what happened then afterwards.
So how did you get introduced to insurance? Because you were working in different industries. What made you start your first role in insurance, and why did you stay in insurance?
That was accidental, and that's what you hear from many people who are in insurance business. When you talk to them and you ask them, how did you end up with insurance? Why did you choose the insurance industry? And many people, at least in my knowledge, at least as far as I know, often tell me accidental, and it was the same for me. So after I worked as a consultant, I took a break to work on my PhD. And after that, I looked out for an option, and insurance industry was something that was available. Not only available, it was something that was attractive to me. And I joined Allianz, the German-based insurance company based in Munich. I said, let's give it a shot.
Yeah.
And it was very good discussions. And at that time, I joined the company. And there's something that is quite specific in Germany. It's not so often in other countries. So you join as a so-called executive assistant. Yeah? When you have professional experience, you work directly to and for a board member of the company, and you are involved in various projects. And that was what I did for 2 years. It was a great opportunity to get into various aspects of insurance, that is retail insurance as well as industrial insurance, etc., and in various projects. And so I started there, and after that I did something which is, I think, one of the best professional experiences I've made. I went to insurance sales, so I literally went door to door for a few months. Yes, and I sold insurance policies. I tried to sell and I sold, and I learned how difficult it is, because it's not an easy job, and it makes clear to you how much you have to respect the efforts in sales. It was a great experience, and after that, I was heading a sales unit for about 3 years, not a few weeks, not a few months, but 3 years, which is a time that you should do, in my view, to learn what it means when you hire people, when you develop people, when you retain people, and make them hopefully grow, or when it doesn't work out well in some cases, then you say, okay, let's do something else.
How did you convince the first person to buy from you when you went door to door?
Good question. It's, I think, something that sometimes takes time. You've got to be natural, you've got to be honest. It starts with really thinking about yourself, okay, the product that you're selling, would you buy it yourself? And that was easy for me. I joined insurance amongst other reasons also because I think it may be for many people not a very sexy product, but it's a very good product.
Yeah.
It protects people from harm, from dangers that we have in everyday life. So I am convinced of that product. And therefore, it was also easy for me to convince people of the product per se, and also specifically of the company I worked for, because the overall value was there, in my view. Not only in my view, it was there. So you have to do some convincing, of course, and stay honest. Try to create an atmosphere of trust, of course. And it was not a cold call. I was principally representing an agency and worked then on their behalf and explained the product. So you got to explain the benefits. You got to be natural. You need to create a sphere of trust, but you also need to make sure that it fits to what the person, the customer you talk to, actually needs. It's not about just selling a product. On the contrary, you need to first understand at the very first place, who is it that I'm talking to? What does the person have, and what does he or she need? And make sure, be fair in the game, because you want to build up a long-term relationship. So it starts on trust and fairness. And if you don't create that, it's going to backfire.
Yeah, fully agree on that. And then I want to ask you about the board member that you worked with. Did you have a good relationship with that person afterwards?
Yeah, I had. I was lucky. One of the reasons at the end was also when I joined to have had the opportunity to get to know him, and he was very, very well known in the insurance industry, and a very impressive personality. Why? Because he's been there for ages. He knows his business, highly successful, and at the same time a humble personality. Very humble, not showing off. Really impressive. And the relationship that I had during the time I worked for him was very good. Was marked with him imparting his knowledge to me and also telling me, okay, what are the success factors or the critical factors in this type of business. Actually, he had quite a big area to cover, several parts of Europe, and Allianz was primarily strong in international business at that time in Europe, and he covered several parts of the geographic territory of Europe, as well as industrial insurance and reinsurance of Allianz. So it was quite a big area that he covered, and I had the opportunity to join and actively contribute to projects in all of these areas.
So this became a mentor?
You could say so, yeah. Yeah, it is. I mean, considering also the time constraints, it's not always easy to have an establish a mentor relationship, but undoubtedly I learned a lot from him.
Yeah.
I was very thankful for the time I had with him.
And one of the things that you said when you describe his personality, that's almost identical with your personality.
Maybe it is. I am being told this, yeah, and maybe that's also would explain why I get along with such types, yeah. So I enjoyed it a lot. I also like to work with other types, and you do work with other types of persons in the business and outside the business. But with him, yeah, I definitely was happy that I had the opportunity to work for him.
Yeah. So and then you rode into the insurance industry. You were working for Allianz in Germany.
Yes.
What made you come to Dubai? What happened? What I mean Dubai. I mean the GCC 2008 Bahrain.
Yeah.
You got an internal job offer.
Look, Simon, the way I did this was when you want to go abroad, and that was my decision, my intent. I want to go and live abroad, work and live, because I had a very good experience when I lived and studied abroad, and I wanted to have that again. And in line also with my partner, with my wife. Yeah. So this is something in my view, when you want to spend and live some time abroad, when you want to live in another country, it has to be a joint decision, and we both wanted to. And what I did at the time when I was working in Munich at Allianz is I kept knocking at the doors, of the people that I knew, and I said, just remember me, I can do this well, in my view, and this well, and I want to work abroad, especially in this area. So to be clear, it's not a specific country, you shouldn't do that, but you should be open to a number of regions or cultures, let's put it like this, and you should also be clear about what you think you are, what is compatible for you, So there were certain areas or cultures, and Allianz has been a big company, it still is, active in many countries and continents, where you say, okay, I'd like to spend some time there in a broader region or in these type of regions, to collect the experience. You have to make this in alignment with your partner or the people that are close to you. And I knocked at the door, and at some point it worked out, and I got a call from the then director of Asia Pacific, and he told me, Abdullah, we have something for you. Can you start tomorrow? And
that's fast.
I'd love to, I'm happy to join. Just give me some time, a few weeks, and of course, you need to make sure that you can finish or hand over the present job that you have. At that time, it was back in Munich that I worked, and then we were ready for the adventure. I had to first look up where Bahrain is located, because it's, as we know here, not a very big place, but it's a wonderful place. And then we started in 2008 in Bahrain.
So how was Bahrain? How was it living in Bahrain?
Just lovely. And it's not only my opinion. If you look on facts, amongst expats in the world, Bahrain always ranks amongst the top countries, and that has various reasons. The people in Bahrain are very friendly, warm-hearted. They're also dealing with foreigners that have been doing it for ages. They're very open-minded, receptive, and many things also in daily life, administrative hurdles, they are negligible. So it's easy for foreigners to come into the country and to be welcome there and start a life, a new life, or continue with the life that they have. It's highly recommendable, I have to tell you. You have a mix of various cultures and people coming from all over the world. It's a liberal country. You can do anything you want, of course, as long as it's in line with law. And it gives you opportunities in business and outside of business to do what you have in mind, with new ideas. It's very receptive and progressive, I have to say. Yeah. So I had a wonderful time. I still love the country. Yes, you can say I love it because it's a small country, but with very nice people, open-minded people that welcome foreigners, no matter where they come from, and still is and will remain so. In my view.
Yeah. And you worked there for Allianz, and then you moved to Saudi. How was it?
Saudi was very different. At the same time, I say also a fantastic experience, because it's so different from what I had before, and also my family had experienced before. But it's something that I would also say, do it. But you need to be clear that there are certain things you need to account for. Saudi at that time was already in a phase of liberalizing the country, opening up, but still for the, let's say, traditional eye of a traditional Westerner, for example, it is different from what you are used to, probably. But being there, witnessing what is happening there, and also witnessing the change that was visible, tangible, literally in the air, is a great, great experience. And stayed there for 3 years. It's, I think, a very good time to get an idea of how things work there. And you see the boost in the country now with the new leadership. It has a belief, it has a great future ahead of itself.
And then in 2014, you came to Dubai.
Yes. It was still within the group of Allianz, but it was a different company, insurance related, but with a focus on service management. It's called Nextcare. And I joined in the end of 2014, and I was working there for 6 or 7 years. So it was a long time. Excellent company. I felt very good to be a part of that team, a strong management team, and an excellent market player. And being based in Dubai doesn't mean it's only restricted to Dubai or the Emirates. It was a regional position with business in several countries in the Middle East and North Africa, up to Morocco, at the very western part. So I spent there several years as part of Allianz Group, and or that branch of Allianz which is called Allianz Partners at the time, which covers principally the global type of business and service businesses of Allianz Group at that time. So I was there for many years, and end of the year 2020, time is passing by so quickly, Simon. End of that year, I joined another insurance company, so I stay in the business. Actually, the same location, almost the same street, Sheikh Zayed Road, just go northwards in direction to Sharjah, RSA, British-based insurance company, and been part of this entity, this organization.
Yeah, so that's interesting because you have been now in different types of insurances.
Yeah.
So you started Allianz's, I think they're big in all types of insurances.
Yes.
You were focused more at all types or in certain type of insurances like life insurance, medical?
It depended on the time when I was in which country and company. So in Germany, in Europe in general, life has a equally important role for insurance. So principally, you have a separation or distinction between life and non-life. Yeah, that's what you say. And in Europe or in US and the Western Hemisphere, both are contributing for the bulk of the premiums relatively equally. In the Middle East, it's a bit different. Life insurance is traditionally not something that is very well known. Insurance in general has a weaker stand, so insurance awareness is not so high like in many other countries. And within insurance, the focus is rather on non-life, like buildings, it's called property, and other elements, motor insurance, of course, and of course health insurance is the biggest segment here in the Middle East. But life is a comparatively small, very small role here for various reasons, partially cultural reasons, but also partially because governments have traditionally taken a strong stance in providing benefits for their people and populations, and the need to take care of certain personal risk on your own was not so big. But this is changing, and in the future, I believe that life insurance will have a stronger foothold also in this region. It will take some time, but it's going to happen.
Interesting. And when it comes to the experience between Germany and Europe, working in the insurance industry there and in the GCC, What type of differences and challenges you see in both places?
Yeah, in every place you have your opportunities and you have your challenges.
Yeah.
And interesting question. So in Europe, you have a much higher awareness. People know about insurance and mostly also know that they need to have some type of insurances, or they believe they need it, yes, because it protects you from any harms. On the other hand, you also have a higher saturation because you have many players competing for it, and people can choose, and often people already have insurances, so do they need another one, right? So it's a different ball game than what you have here in the Middle East, where you have a very low penetration. We use in our business the word penetration to signify quantitatively the importance of insurance, measured by premiums, as we call it, premiums, in relation to the gross domestic product of a country. Yeah. And in the Middle East, it's much, much lower than what you have in the big insurance markets in the world. It's much lower. So it reflects that people have not so much of that awareness or do not see the need to that extent like in the other countries. What does it mean? It means there's a lot of potential for future growth, right? Mm-hmm. That's a good thing. On the other hand, things have to also grow, and you have to convince people and make it clear to people why would they need it? Why is it good for them, or why is it not good for them? And what do they need and what do they not need? To identify this and also explain it, because the product per se has one disadvantage. It's not something tangible like this sheet of paper I have in my hand, or like a car or a candy or anything else. So you have to explain people what it actually is behind it. And one other factor is when we talk about harm, you could also say protection is a good thing, but often it's associated with negative images. So you have to overcome a certain obstacle, because sometimes some people don't want to really think of potential dangers or threats in everyday life, which is understandable.
And I think some coaches are just different as well, like you explained. Like here, you need to sometimes convince people that insurances are good for them.
Yeah.
In some countries and cultures, people are like, what's the first thing you do when you get a job? I got an insurance, because it's culturally
entrenched.
Embedded.
Embedded, yes.
In Netherlands, where I'm from, I think we are the number 1 or number 2 in the highest spenders on insurance in the world.
Yeah.
€5,000. I saw the last update. I don't know if it's more now, per year, per household. Funny enough, Germany, €2,500.
I didn't know that. It's amazing. It's twice as much.
Twice as much.
Wow, okay.
That only means one thing: they're more scared. They're easily convinced to buy insurance.
Possibly.
You don't have to convince them. Just say, I have an insurance. They buy it. So they like insurance.
Yeah.
For everything. There's also an insurance which everybody takes, which is ridiculous, which is called aansprakelijkheidsverzekering.
Yeah.
And which means that if I go and visit my neighbor and I spill red wine on their carpet, they might make me pay for the carpet.
Yeah.
And that's why I have an insurance that
liability, right? Personal liability.
Yeah, personal liability.
But this is considered to be something that everyone should have. Yeah. However, it's not common here at all. Yeah. So in Europe, it's something.
I believe that for big claims, you should have it.
Yeah.
My response is for €100 or €200. I'm like, I gladly pay it and say goodbye to that friend or neighbor that wants me to pay for it. I'm like, here, take my money, but I'm gone. You know.
Exactly.
Accidents happen.
Exactly. Yes.
If you want.
Yes.
For big liabilities that you can be held accountable for, making people like handicap, permanent disable, which are in the millions.
Yeah,
you should be able to not pay those expenses out of your own pocket.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Makes sense.
So you came in the industry, and now you are in. For a while, you are in finance. You grew your way up to the top, to CFO in a company that you worked now, RSA, and before also in Nextcare. But how did you start it in finance? Because you said that you came in the industry, you worked first in a special position together with the board member. Yeah. Then you went into sales. How did you end up in finance?
Good question. Look, academically, I had some one of the two focus points I had, yeah. So when I studied at university, I had 2 points: marketing, sales, and the other one was finance.
Yeah.
And also my PhD was on finance, so it was not completely new territory for me.
Okay.
Finance was also something that I'm interested in because I believe that many business decisions should be properly evaluated and assessed from a financial viewpoint on the potential risks and outcomes, quantified. I believe that most of the things can be and should be quantified, not only, but it should be. Certainly seen as one criterion to assess or to facilitate decision making, and finance is one of the core functions also to help in this regard. Now, if you ask me what a CFO does or what we do in finance, there are various aspects.
Yeah.
But one of the aspects is indeed to help in the decision making process of the business as a partner of the CEO, who is the ultimate stakeholder and at the helm of the company, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So what made you have your first position in finance in the insurance industry?
It was an opportunity. It was an opportunity when I was in Bahrain, when I was becoming the CFO of the entity. So, sorry.
Was that your first job?
That
in finance, in insurance?
It was not my first job in insurance, but it was my first finance-related one, yeah. That was at a holding level, a small holding, to be there. And then I moved later on, not immediately, but later on, to a finance position in Saudi Arabia. Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, straight away CFO.
Yeah, it was, don't forget, a comparatively small entity, in Bahrain first, So it was a type of rather supervisory steering, if you want to put it like this, And then I grew into the role more and more, and in Saudi it was a bigger role. And then when I was in Dubai, a comparable role, So it was growing over time.
The responsibilities became more...
Yes, responsibilities measured in various parameters, turnover, you could say, regional responsibility, but also the functions, because the classical finance function does not really exist like this. You can cover a lot of other areas as well. So partially you also have risk-related aspects. Sometimes you have compliance, although it should be a bit segregated, but it happens occasionally, and therefore you cover various other aspects. And it was in my case the same.
So in insurance, I believe it's very important to make a risk assessment on what are you potentially going to pay, what do you charge for the premium, and how do you make sure that is in balance. So how do you support the business in providing reliable information that they can make good decisions?
You need to distinguish between something that is rather technical and what we call usually done in underwriting, where they price risks and they say this is what we're going to do in order to have a so-called price adequacy, to make sure that that we properly account for risks that we can possibly incur when signing a contract, a policy with a policyholder, the customer, who can be an individual person or a company or anything else, right? So what we help is, there are various parameters. In a nutshell, is one element is to plan what we expect as revenues. We call them premiums in our business, from which channels, from which countries, from which products it comes from, and to see what do we have now, how much can we grow. This is a kind of a dialogue that you have with other parts of the company, and finance helps here in filtering that information, organizing it, and in a reiterative process to structure it. Because this is one element out of the overall value chain. You have premiums or premium expectations, right? And then you have expense positions, and the biggest expense factor is claims, what you're paying out. And here you have the projections from various parts of the company, underwriting, actuarial, etc., for claims that you have to pay right away, or for future claims. You take them as one of your expense positions. And then you have two other, I just simplified a bit, two other major expense positions that are not as big as the claims, but they are still significant. One is your internal costs that you have for rent and for your administration, all the stuff that you have, or for third parties. And the other part is acquisition costs that you pay for intermediaries, for example, or other market partners. This is quite common in the insurance industry. You have to pay them, and they differ depending on the business segment. but they also represent often enough a 2-digit percentage of the premiums. So you get this together as part of a plan, and finance should help to facilitate this, but also to identify areas of higher profitability and areas of lower profitability, of course, which is often enough not well done in organizations. Here it's about understanding it, identifying it, understanding it, first identifying, then understanding, but also then steering it. Often enough you notice that companies, not only insurance, are making the bulk of their revenues or profits with few products or few channel partners or in few territories, etc., or with few customers. And you need to balance that as a kind of part of portfolio management, and you need to also make sure that you can contribute to identifying growth areas. And this is again coming back to numbers. Where are the growth areas? You need to see which markets keep growing, which products can grow, which customer segments or which channels have the best opportunities to grow.
Yeah, and if you look at the insurance industry, then for people that don't work in the insurance industry, they always only look at the price, right? Because initially people say, okay, what will I pay for my insurance? Like you're now in RSA is big in car insurance now, right?
Yeah, primarily.
Primarily in this region,
yes,
at least.
Yes, yeah.
So when people compare, they say, well, I want the lowest premium. But there's also a cost that you pay for getting the lowest price, which is what is actually covered, under which conditions.
You're right. Yeah.
Do you think that consumers, the people that buy the policies, are fully aware of all these terms and conditions?
No, they're not. A survey indicated that to take an example, read a year ago, 1.5 years ago, that one of the major insurance companies in the region had made with their customers or with other potential customers, that I think some 60% of customers, of people, are not aware of the terms and conditions. They don't understand the policy in detail. How should they also? It's quite difficult written. It's comprehensive and it's complicated. And of course, this is a bit of an obstacle. People then tend to simplify, and I can't blame them. Everyone would do that. And then price is a visible indicator or a criterion that people use as an orientation point. And it happens to be one major factor in the decision-making process. But again, like in other industries, there are always different customer segments. Some of them go for price only and want to have the lowest, and others don't think so and see price as one out of several parameters. The question is, of course, for these other segments, how is the service in case you have a claim? Or what is actually covered? How much is actually covered, and how much do I get in case something happens? This is just to give you a few examples. And I do think that sometimes people are not aware because they prefer to take a decision based on price. Because if you look at the cost of insurance in relation to a car, it's not that much, in my view. Often people spend much more on taking certain parts, accessories of the car, rather than taking the insurance policy. And that is also something that we have to work on as an insurance industry and its players, to convey this message to the customer and not to blame the customer for taking that decision.
How can that be done? Because terms and conditions can be buried in many pages. And then you have the
maturity. Simon, it's maturity. It's about giving the message, what do you actually get from the insurance? How does it protect you? And how does it fit you? Do you need that? Do you want that? I think it's more often than not, it's not properly done. And it's often enough it goes over price without looking at the real customer needs, irrespective of what product you're looking at. But let's start from looking at a customer relation, not only a single product, but what is the customer doing, what is his or her needs, and which product.
I will give you a very bad example in where it went wrong. One of my clients, he has an oncology center. So while I was meeting him, he pulled me into a meeting. And there was this lady that was there, and she was visiting from Oman. She was an expat, British lady. And she said, I have travel insurance. I'm diagnosed with cancer now. My medical insurance is, I reached the limit of the medical insurance. I believe I will not name the insurance company, a travel insurance from this company, and I believe I should be protected for this emergency. So we approached that insurance company, we filed the claim, I helped her even, although I had nothing to do with it. And they just said, no, these are the terms and conditions, it's pre-existing, etc. Even if you found it out here, no way we're going to pay. No, not a single chance in the world. And this lady was just shocked because she thought she was insured.
Yeah.
So how can the industry help actively to make aware what type of insurance people have and what are the best ways that they can easily understand it? Because it's not, like you said, it's not a sexy industry. Yeah. It's not that
about
appealing.
Education, Simon. It's about education. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Having properly trained people involved in the process of selling an insurance. Again, it's about what does the customer actually need now or may need. Yeah. What you now given as an example is a sad example, it's a tragic example, but it's real. It happens. Yeah. It's not only a single case. And again, it's about what can happen to someone who feels healthy and then all of a sudden the world collapses, right? Yeah. And this is where an essential insurance can help, and this is part of the sales process. Most people cannot have the capacity or the oversight of all the details in an insurance policy. It's too much. It's too complicated.
It's too complicated, and there's also the terminology.
Yeah. But if I got it right from what you were saying or mentioning, it was mentioned as a so-called pre-existing condition, which is usually mandatory to state before concluding the policy. Now, this is not something that necessarily the person that you know has to be blamed for, but it was something that was not mentioned in the sale process. Yeah.
No, but it was not pre-existing because obviously you don't hide that you have cancer. Just that the stage that she was in that particular case was that they said you can sue us for us. We don't care. Our point of view is that this was happened before you took the policy, so we will not cover it. Yeah. But the point was this: even if they're right or wrong, I looked very closely at what they covered. There was maybe a 1% chance that this lady would get covered anyway, even if it was not pre-existing. It was just not there in the policy that something will cover her for medical
again,
support.
Part of the selling process, the product sounds like it was bad, and you have that. And that actually states, contrary to what many people say, all the T&C, the terms and conditions are identical or nearby identical. You just give an example of when it's not the case. So it's not covered in the policy, that's what you're saying. And then it's difficult to argue against it. Yeah. So it's a poor product. The other thing is there are often gray areas, Simon. Yeah. And then what happens is look at the reputation of companies who settle claims. Health is a drastic example, but a real example that really matters, especially when it is about life-threatening diseases. And you can see studies or analysis of which insurance company is more inclined to settle that, based on the conditions defined. So that also helps because you have sometimes, I cannot rule it out, companies that have the policy in claims, let's reject as much as we can, and then they go
That's
over
also
the limits,
one way to not pay out.
But to be very clear, there's a so-called term which we call in the insurance industry conduct risk, and the reputable players abide by this. If we have a low amount of claims, we're not acting as an insurer,
Yeah.
we will incur a reputational issue.
So that's very good actually, and insurance is as good as the party behind it.
Yeah.
So I look at these statistics if they are available. Payout ratio for claims in my industry, it's for life insurance and critical illness and things like this, and then I justify it with the pricing in it if it's in balance.
Yeah.
I believe that there should be more of that done here in this region, where for every industry, and also that the ratings, like some insurance companies are rated AAA or AA, and here they are a branch of a big name, but they're standalone in the end. So, why don't they get a rating for their business set up here? How strong it is here? Do you think in that area there will be movement in the future?
In terms of financial stability, is that what you're?
No, I mean that they will move more towards, for example, more regulation, more transparency, like in Europe or Hong Kong, Singapore.
Definitely, 100%. It's already happening. Yeah, and it's still a way to go, but the regulators in this region do a good job. If you ask about the trends in the industry, one of the elements will be more and more, and it's already happening, regulatory intervention and influence. It starts with reporting requirements. It also goes on with the rules and guidelines that regulators set. And yes, it will lead to higher transparency and clarity as well. And that's good actually for the industry, because like every industry, you have a number of good players, you have some average players, and you have some not so good players. Yeah, and I think with that trend that we have, it continues to improve significantly. I can tell you, in my business that I work with, there are companies that are not having a great position, and I'm not talking only about their financial position, also in other terms. So with what the regulator is currently doing and also targeting to do, this will ameliorate and significantly improve. But it takes some time. It's a year-long process, but it will have significant impacts. It will lead to consolidation in the industry. It will also lead to higher fixed costs. So you cannot continue to be a niche player in this market.
Yeah, and maybe this is wrong, but my observation in this market is that there's a lot of insurance companies, and it's not such a big market in terms of population, but there's a lot of choice. There's a lot of players in the market. You have players from the East, players from the Middle East, local, Europe, even Americans. Do you think that maybe in the future it will help that there will be less players in the market?
That's what I'm saying, yeah. Consolidation goes in that direction, and some regulators also explicitly target that. If you, as you rightfully say, look at the size of the population in each of these countries here surrounding us, and the number of insurance companies and also intermediaries, insurance-related players, it's by far too high.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's going to happen. It is happening, and it will happen more even. And one element is also what I mentioned, is regulatory requirements will put a burden on the fixed cost structure of many of these enterprises, and then you can't continue to be small.
Yeah, and the better ones will most likely survive. The ones with that are strong financially, have a good reputation.
Yeah.
Funny story that might happen with insurance then as well was, I was one time meeting this Greek gentleman, 2015.
Okay.
He said, I was there during the Greek crisis, and he said, we had more than 90 banks in Greece, and today we have 3, and they are even merging one of those 3 to 2. Then we have 2 left. He said, when I look at Dubai, and this was 2015, I see Greece. There's so many banks that, and since then there's a lot of banks that have merged, and a lot of international players have exited. So the market has become smaller in terms of the amount of players. Maybe in the insurance industry, you will see also a similar trend, acceleration. It should happen in terms of market size.
Yeah.
But when does it happen? That's maybe up to the market.
You know how it is with prognosis, yeah? They're always difficult, in particular when it's about future. It is difficult to say when things are exactly happening. But the outlook is very clear. That analogy in terms of what happens in the banking industry fits quite well. It will also happen in the insurance industry. Now, whether it's going to be more or less, difficult to say, and also the time frame. But it's going to be in the foreseeable future and visibly happening. That's for sure, because there are various factors. The regulators support this with the various requirements, and not everyone can cope with that and can catch up with this. There's also market trends. To give an example, motor premiums have fallen dramatically over the last years, squeezing the margins of the players, and other sectors are not that profitable overall either. So when you look at the most recent insurance results in the industry as a whole, it's not that bad overall, but when you look then one step further, you see that a good deal comes from the investment income. So it is not really insurance-related profit that drives it, and that has partially offset what has been lost on the insurance-related result. So in other words, some insurance companies invest the money that they get from premiums, make some money from equity or some other financial transactions, while they make much less money or incur losses in their regular insurance business. So, but this is not actually what's supposed to happen, right? At the end of the day, there should be on the technical part, the insurance part, profitable enough standalone.
Yeah, I mean that will be dangerous for the lifeline if they don't have if it's not sustainable, then it's just a matter of time until they run out of cash.
Yeah, so we have to see how that goes. But again, I underscore that the trend will continue, will probably accelerate in terms of consolidation. And this is something that most people in the industry also share as terms of outlook.
And how are fintech companies in the insurance industry playing a role in this? I used to work for a company that had a separate division which built comparisons between all type of insurance.
Yeah.
And their first one was the car insurance. So you click, you say, my car is this year's old, click, and then you see like the options, and you can put the benefits that you want there, the type of insurance, and then you get a ranking what the options are, what the best options are. You click, and then you have an insurance. That's in the end what they did. They made it very fast, and within a couple of minutes you can be having a car insurance. And so, how do these players affect the penetration of the market in the first place by increasing the market players, the consumers, because they can easily approach people. And the second question is, do they help to accelerate the consolidation because they are basically making certain players less relevant, like brokers?
There's a number of sub-questions related to that, points. Look, first of all, what is the impact in the market? Can it help to improve the overall revenue, right? And develop a marketplace? I think that depends on place and product. You have partially relatively high penetration rates in certain product segments. And it's always good if it facilitates the decision-making process for the customer. The question is now, is this coming from external players, fintech companies that come from outside, or is something that established insurance players learn to adopt and also develop themselves proactively enough? We have to see that. It's going to come here as well. The question is when. We don't know. But we have enough competition that could come from fintech, but also from other ends. Yeah, Google is always a name that is mentioned in the horizon as a potential player. Most recently, Tesla is also going into the insurance business, which is not new. Which is not new because also others did in the past, but Tesla is going with a different approach. They have a large pool of data of their own drivers, right? So they want to provide tailor-made products. That could be a threat as well, for the insurance industry. They start with Tesla clients, and who knows, they could also expand to non-Tesla clients. But to To what extent they're going to roll it out, and also geographically and product-wise or customer group-wise, is not clear yet. It's a very recent development. At the end of the day, I think we need to highlight one thing is what comes from such processes about data management and data analysis that help to provide better products, better fitting to the customer needs, which is very good. It also helps the customer. So one of the weaknesses that you have here in the region is this no claim benefits. We don't have that. So someone who's been driving without accidents for 20 years does not get a better rate than someone who continues to do it every year. Yeah, that's simply not very fair and not very good either. So you don't have the suitable pricing for the customer in this regard, right?
So everybody's treated that the same way.
Yes. To some extent, yes. At least it's not refined enough. You can say that. The other part is to what extent insurance players in the industry, that means also the intermediaries, manage the relationship and with the customer more effectively. So I'm trying to say, by looking at, again, what is the customer, who is the customer, what is the customer's needs, and then to provide the right products. Because to take the example of fintech, it requires the customer or the potential customer to still proactively look into that, use that tool, and then make a solution. But that could be isolated for a single product, and it requires the customer to approach that company or to find the source, how to get access to that tool, right? But I still think that it's largely underdeveloped to have a relationship that is based on defining the customer as a whole and also his or her needs, and that's not only centered on one insurance. And that also helps the insurance company and the industry to position better themselves much better. To give an example, it's a clear correlation between contract density and stability of a relationship. So a customer that has one motor policy is more likely to not renew or less likely to stay with you, than a customer who has 3 policies with you. That's a clear empirical correlation. And it's important for an insurance company or its intermediaries to keep that ongoing. And why is that? In many insurance policies, Simon, as you know, you have very few touch points. Yeah. You have it at the time of concluding the policy. And then
you don't only want to be negative during the claim session.
Yes, but how often do you have claims? When you have luck, you don't have it so often. When you have a motor policy, like I was fortunate enough to not have accidents that I caused in the last 35 years or so, right? So, but it means you have very few interaction points with the insurance company. It's different in health insurance, where you often go to a doctor. So what I'm talking about managing the relation by providing service and trying to find ways to differentiate yourself. And this is also a way to preempt the market entry of fintechs or other players who come with smart data analysis, which is very, very good. But covers one aspect of the customer relationship.
So what can be done to a customer like yourself that 35 years has no accident? You still will have insurance because...
I pay too much. I pay too much because in principle I pay an amount that is mixed with the claims experiences of people who have an accident every year. Simplified. I
mean, back home in the Netherlands, people don't even want to claim small accidents because then the discount goes
same in Germany.
Goes down.
Exactly.
And people are really proud of that track record and
And think about the collateral effects, the positive effects. People have an incentive to drive carefully to keep their discount level.
I mean, in the end of the day, I think this, when you don't know, you cannot assess the risk because you don't know who you're dealing with. That's also risky for an insurer.
Yes, it is. And then to some extent you have to price it or try to price it, but it's not as simple. One thing is the nice thing that you calculate on the paper. The other part is what the market commands, and these are two different stories.
So, where do you see the outlook now for the coming 5 to 10 years? Because we talked about things that are happening now on a pretty ongoing basis. Where do you see the insurance market and maybe particular more your market heading towards in 5 or 10 years?
consolidation will be definitely a trend that will continue and that will accelerate. So size matters. Yeah, this is going to happen. We will have fewer players in each of the countries and bigger players. We will have more customer-centric actions. So everyone talks about customer orientation, but there's a greater need than ever before, amongst others, to find a way to differentiate yourself. So the level of price competition is immense at the moment, and one way to escape it is to simply find points of differentiation, and it starts with customer orientation, like in every business. Automation and digitization are keywords, but they will be very important to keep in mind, because being successful in the business requires to be cost competitive enough. So you need to automate enough to keep your fixed costs low, or to lower them. And you need to digitize in order to accelerate, for cost reasons, but also to accelerate processes internally, but also towards the customer. So this is going to certainly happen to a much bigger scale than before, because we as an industry have to catch up. We're still a very conservative industry in each regard, and the way we move forward is quite slow. And you have that in various aspects. One part of digitization covers the discussion about tele insurance. It's not moving very quick as yet, but it can at some point. And maybe there will be a catch-up effect where you keep moving, shaking the bottle, nothing happens, and all of a sudden all of it comes out. So you need to be prepared that if you have a first move advantage, you can be, if you're daring enough, you could change the industry with at least in some product segments. And I think what is also important is the nexus of it is the customer orientation, and to see, don't define yourself as someone who try to sell only over price. You can do that if you define yourself as a cost-effective supplier only, but if you look at differential advantage, try to find here your segment and make sure it's sizable enough. So what does it mean for the industry? I think we will have fewer players who go more into automation, digitization, stronger customer orientation than before. We will continue to be more regulated than before. This is another outlook. And I think as a part of success factor, whoever manages better to manage the network effectively will be amongst the key winners, for sure. The network means the pool of insurance players, intermediaries, customers, and providers in various aspects in each product. And providers can be workshops for motor, a hospital, and medical, or others.
Great insights from Dr. Abdullah Mansury. Thank you so much for sharing valuable information with us. It was very educational. It was my pleasure having you here on the podcast. And for the people listening, this was Dr. Abdullah Mansury, Regional Chief Financial Officer at RSA. Thank you so much again for being here.
My pleasure, Simon. Always good to see you. Always good to meet you. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.